Have you ever faced a moment when your entire life was turned upside down in a single sentence? This story is not just about betrayal. It's about resilience, dignity, and the hidden strength we discover when everything we believed in collapses. If you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, if you've ever wondered how to move forward when the ground disappears beneath your feet, then this story is for you. In the next few minutes, I'll share the morning when my marriage ended, over coffee in the most ordinary setting imaginable. But more than the shock of betrayal, this story will reveal how I chose calm over chaos, strategy over despair, and how that single decision changed everything in my life. As you listen, I want you to ask yourself, how would you react if the person you loved most told you they were leaving for someone else, taking everything you built together? Would you crumble or would you rise? This video will give you not only my answer, but also a perspective that can inspire you in your own challenges. Stay with me because what happened next will surprise you. It was supposed to be an ordinary Tuesday morning. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen, and sunlight streamed through the window, painting golden patches on the table. I remember flipping through the newspaper absent-mindedly, still in my robe, thinking about the errands I had to run later that day. Nothing felt unusual, nothing warned me of the storm about to unfold. My husband sat across from me, his spoon clinking against the cup as he stirred his coffee. There was a tension in the air I couldn't quite place, a heaviness in his silence that felt different from the usual quiet mornings we often shared. I thought maybe he was distracted by work, maybe stressed about something he hadn't told me. We had been married long enough for me to notice even the smallest changes in his mood. But I didn't expect the words that soon followed. He set his cup down, leaned back, and looked me straight in the eyes with an unsettling calm. His voice was steady, almost rehearsed, as he said, "I'm divorcing you. I'm moving to New York with my 29-year-old girlfriend. Oh, and by the way, I've already emptied our joint account." For a moment, time froze. The newspaper slipped from my hands, the words on the page suddenly meaningless. My chest tightened, but my face didn't move. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I inhaled deeply, steadying myself against the wave of emotions crashing inside me. Little did he know I was not as powerless as he believed. To truly understand that morning, you need to picture the life we had built. Our home was elegant but modest, filled with years of shared memories. Photos from vacations, gifts from anniversaries, and the little marks of routine. My favorite vase on the kitchen table, his jacket always draped over the same chair. It was the kind of home that looked stable, safe, unshakable. From the outside, we were the picture of a long marriage that had survived its ups and downs. But inside, cracks had been forming, ones I had quietly noticed yet chosen to ignore. That morning, the kitchen became a stage for the truth. The sun was warm, the birds were singing, and yet the atmosphere was ice cold. He didn't hesitate, didn't soften the blow. It was as if he had rehearsed every word, timed it perfectly to hurt me when I least expected it. I could see the satisfaction in his eyes, as if he believed he had taken control of the entire story. His tone wasn't apologetic. It was triumphant, like someone announcing a victory. But what he didn't realize was that the real story was only just beginning. The house that had been our sanctuary suddenly felt like a battlefield, with me on one side of the table and him on the other. Still, I sat in silence, observing him, listening not only to his words but to his arrogance, his certainty that I was defeated. In that moment, something inside me shifted. I knew I had a choice: to collapse under the weight of betrayal or to rise, calm and deliberate, and turn his certainty into his greatest mistake. The words hit me harder than any physical blow could. Divorce. New York. A younger woman. An empty bank account. He had stripped away in a single breath the pillars of what I thought my life was built on: marriage, trust, security. My mind spun as I tried to grasp the reality. The man I had built a life with was not only leaving me, but he was taking everything material with him. To him, I was supposed to be left with nothing but my broken pride. I wanted to break down. My instincts screamed at me to shout, to demand answers, to throw the coffee mug across the room. But instead I stayed still, holding on to the one thing he couldn't take: my composure. Inside, yes, there was chaos, fear, disbelief, and an aching sense of betrayal. But above it all, there was a quiet voice telling me, "Don't give him the reaction he's expecting." I realized in that instant that this was the true obstacle. Not the money, not the betrayal, not even the younger woman. The obstacle was my own battle between rage and restraint. If I let rage take over, I would give him exactly what he wanted. Proof of his superiority, evidence of my collapse. But if I held on to restraint, I could flip the script. I could choose to be calm when everything around me demanded panic. And so, I clutched my cup, took a sip of coffee, and looked at him as if he hadn't just shattered the life we built. As strange as it may sound, in that moment my goal became crystal clear. I wanted peace. Not revenge, not even justice, at least not right away. What I wanted was to hold on to my dignity, to protect the part of me that he could never touch. Because money could be stolen, love could be betrayed, but self-respect was mine to keep or to lose. And I refused to hand it to him. I looked at him, expecting me to crumble, and instead I gave him a steady, almost serene expression. In my silence, I could see his confusion growing. He had prepared for tears, for begging, for accusations, but he had not prepared for calm. That was my first small victory. But beneath that calm exterior, another goal was forming. One I kept hidden from him. I wanted to secure my future. He thought he had taken everything, but I had planned ahead. Quietly, months earlier, I had started separating a portion of my earnings into an account only I controlled. Something told me that day might come, and I wasn't about to be left defenseless. My goal was not just to survive but to rebuild, on my own terms with my own strength. And so, as he leaned back with his smug smile, believing he had won, I smiled softly too. Not because I accepted defeat, but because I knew something he didn't. I knew that the game was far from over, and that I was about to write the ending he never saw coming. For a brief moment, I thought I had regained my footing. My hidden account gave me a quiet sense of security, but the reality of what he had done still loomed like a shadow. He wasn't just leaving me. He was leaving with the confidence that he had stripped me bare. He believed he had outsmarted me, humiliated me, and left me powerless. That arrogance became its own kind of obstacle, because while I was calm on the outside, I knew his actions had real consequences. Bills had to be paid. Life had to go on. I had to face the harsh truth. I was about to step into an uncertain future. Fear whispered in my ear at night. What if your hidden savings aren't enough? What if you can't rebuild? Doubts crept in, not only about finances but about myself. For years I had defined my worth by the life we built together. Now, stripped of that partnership, I had to rediscover who I was on my own. But he wasn't finished. Days later, he called to gloat, as if twisting the knife deeper. He bragged about his new life, about how happy he was in New York and how foolish I must feel being left behind. His words weren't just cruel, they were calculated. He wanted to remind me of my supposed weakness. He wanted me to question everything I had left. That call became the true test. It forced me to confront not only his betrayal but the fear inside me. Would I let his voice dictate my future? Or would I use his arrogance as fuel to strengthen my resolve? The obstacle was no longer just about money or betrayal. It was about proving to myself that I could rise above the ashes without breaking. The turning point came not in a dramatic explosion, but in a quiet decision. After his call, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the framed photographs that once told the story of our marriage. My eyes lingered on a picture from our first anniversary, both of us smiling, arms wrapped around each other. That woman in the photograph, I realized, was still me. She hadn't disappeared. She was just buried beneath years of compromise, silence, and sacrifice. At that moment, I chose to rewrite the narrative. Instead of playing the role of the abandoned wife, I decided to become the woman who refused to be broken. I remembered the calm I showed at the breakfast table when he delivered his cruel announcement. That calm wasn't weakness, it was strength. And strength, I realized, was the foundation I would build on. I began taking small but deliberate steps. I contacted my lawyer, not with tears or panic, but with clarity and precision. I opened my financial records, reviewed what I had secured, and started planning how to use it wisely. I reconnected with friends I had distanced myself from during my marriage, people who reminded me of my worth outside of being his wife. And then came the greatest twist. He called again, not to gloat this time, but in anger. He had discovered the truth, that he hadn't taken everything, that I had secured money he thought was his. His rage poured through the phone, but all I could do was smile. Because in that moment the balance of power shifted. He had expected me to crumble, but instead he realized I was 2 steps ahead. The turning point wasn't just about money, it was about reclaiming control over my life. When the dust settled, the reality of my new life began to take shape. The man I once loved was gone, living out his illusion of happiness with someone half my age, while I remained in the home we had built. At first, the silence was suffocating. The empty chair across the table was a reminder of betrayal. But slowly that silence transformed into freedom. No more walking on eggshells, no more shrinking myself to avoid his criticism. I started rebuilding, not just financially but emotionally. With each passing day I grew stronger. I embraced new routines, cooked meals just for me, and filled the house with laughter again, even if it was only my own at first. I began pursuing passions I had long abandoned. Reading late into the night, painting, even planning small trips I never dared to take before. The fear of being alone turned into the joy of rediscovering myself. As for him, word eventually reached me that his perfect new life wasn't as flawless as he had imagined. Arguments, financial strain, and the reality of his choices began to wear on him. But by then I was beyond caring. The power he once held over me had dissolved and I was free. The resolution wasn't about revenge, it was about rebirth. I didn't need him to fail for me to succeed. My victory came from the peace I cultivated, the dignity I preserved, and the future I carved out with my own hands. When I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw the broken woman at the breakfast table. I saw a survivor, a woman who had turned betrayal into empowerment. Looking back now, I realized the story was never about him leaving. It was about me staying true to myself, to my strength, and to my dignity. The morning he thought he had destroyed me became the very moment I began to rise. My calm good luck wasn't just a response. It was a declaration of independence, a promise to myself that I would never let anyone steal my peace again. Life is unpredictable. Betrayal comes when we least expect it. But what defines us is not the pain we endure, it's the way we choose to respond. I chose silence over rage, strategy over desperation, and growth over despair. And in doing so, I discovered a version of myself I might never have known otherwise. If you're listening to this story right now, maybe you're facing your own version of betrayal. Maybe someone you trusted has walked away, leaving you with questions and emptiness. Let me remind you, you are not powerless. Even in the darkest moment, you hold the power of your response. That power can rebuild your life in ways you never imagined. So I leave you with this: when life shatters your plans, don't crumble. Smile, breathe, and remember that sometimes the quietest response is the loudest victory. If my story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced a moment where calm was your greatest weapon? I'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel, because more stories like this are coming, stories that will remind you of the strength you already have inside. This is not just my story, it can be yours too.